Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Simple Money, where we discuss a variety of financial topics from a different viewpoint of someone that's been in finance for 3+ decades. And that's me, John Thompson, founder and lead advisor at Simple Mortgage. And then introduce yourself.
I'm David Thompson.
And so go ahead.
So
what's your perspective then?
Younger perspective, relatively fresh out of college 3-4 years ago and been in this finance kind of space for those last couple of years.
Perfect. So today, and probably for the next few episodes, we're going to be discussing a topic that is, I think, near and dear to my heart, but also to many people. We're going to reference an article which is called 11 Great Reasons to Carry a Big, Long Mortgage. So again, 11 great reasons to carry a big, long mortgage. This article originally was written by Ric Edelman, R-I-C, Edelman. We'll put his information in, but if you Google Ric, you'll discover that he has one of the largest financial planning firms in the United States. He's a well-respected author, speaker, and an advisor. I highly recommend his books, Extraordinary Wealth, Ordinary People, and a couple other ones that are fantastic that I think are required reading for anyone trying to learn about finance. So Ric originally wrote this article, and then we're going to be kind of commenting on it from our different perspectives and from the perspectives of liability advice, which is what we really do, the core things in our practice. All right. So just to start off with, 11 reasons to carry a big, long mortgage, it kind of flies in the face of what many people believe. Many people, first off, if you surveyed a room full of 100 people, David, how many people do you think would raise their hands and say, I really want a big, long mortgage?
One or two.
One or two, and it might be me.
Yeah.
So that being said, it's because it seems to fly in the face of sort of conventional wisdom. And so we're going to be discussing why that may or may not be true for you, but certainly from our perspective, because most people don't want a mortgage. If they had the money to buy a home, they probably would pay cash for the home, but that carries very serious implications from a financial perspective and your ability to grow wealth. Right. So reason number one, Dave, you want to tell us what reason number one is?
Sure. Yeah. Reason number one is that your mortgage doesn't affect the value of your home.
So it doesn't affect the value of your home. So the question there is to think, does your home even know you have a mortgage?
The home has no idea.
Right. And so, and you just pause for a moment, think about it. The rise or decline of a piece of real estate will happen based on market forces, not on our individual forces, not on David's choices or John's choices or your choices, right? And so it doesn't matter if you have a mortgage. So the home's going to go up or down no matter what, is unaffected by it. And in fact, let's talk about sort of appreciation, right? So does appreciation come from your mortgage or paying your mortgage?
Nope, not at all.
Where does appreciation come from?
It comes from, the rise in the value of your homes. It's the market kind of telling us that's happening. When there's everybody buying homes and whatnot, your house is, appreciating, going up in value. Of course, we've seen a few instances in the past where the opposite's true, where homes are falling in value. Generally speaking, everybody's in the market to buy a home, and appreciation has always happened, not always, but generally has happened over the course of history.
Yeah, and you're right. And so, when you think about maybe even a $400,000 home, and this $400,000 home, goes up 3 or 4% a year, it doesn't really matter what the mortgage is doing. It makes no difference at all. And in fact, if a home, let's think about this from a different perspective. If a home is not going up in value, let's just say it's remaining stagnant, what's going to happen, Dave, to the equity in the home if you have a mortgage?
If the home's staying stagnant,
if the value of the home is staying the same.
Yeah, well, the equity will, I guess, technically go up at the home if you're paying down the mortgage, but you have to look at the other side of that because you're making a payment to kind of increase that equity as well. So,
yeah. So, the key point there, who's making the payment?
Well, you are, the homeowner.
Right. The way that the equity is getting into the home, which might feel like appreciation, is because you're doing something with it, right? You're taking your money, you're pulling it out of your pocket, your wallet, and you're moving it into the house, right? So it's your own wealth. You already have the wealth.
Mm-hmm.
You already have it somewhere, checking account, savings account, investment account, and all you're doing is moving it to a different pocket. Does that make sense, Dave?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, great.
Moving your wallet from your right pocket to your left pocket,
Yeah, absolutely. And so the reality is that if you took $10,000 and you paid down your mortgage, you're taking the $10,000 away from someplace else where it might be doing something, invested, growing, doing whatever. But if you do put it in the home, what is the benefit of doing that?
Well, you're going to pay less interest because there's, less of an interest cost on less of a mortgage. So if
Yeah.
you're taking that money.
So there is that benefit. And so there are reasons to pay down your mortgage. And the primary reason is to avoidance of interest. Thinking about this another way, whatever interest you're avoiding, you're actually also earning that rate of return. So if your interest rate on your mortgage is 6%, and you put $10,000 in the mortgage, and what's the rate of return on that $10,000?
6%.
You got it. All right. So, but again, it's not appreciation, right? Appreciation is only going to come from the marketplace.
Yep.
Whereas pay down is your own money. And yes, it is equity. It's just now in a different place than it was before. And that's just a financial decision, and decision that has other sort of applications, right? So Dave, when you were younger, did you even ever consider appreciation or equity or any of these kind of things?
No, not at all. And I guess when you're even younger than this, it was like, well, why would I ever want to buy anything with, a mortgage or a loan or whatnot? And then once you kind of learn about finance and learn about mortgages and money and all this stuff, then you can kind of see what we're talking about here, benefits of, using leverage and debt and things like that in certain cases.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. All right. And so let's move on to the second reason now for this. So the second reason is a mortgage is not going to stop you from building equity in the home, right? So we've already started to talk about that in sort of the previous reason, but what's the primary reason people want to even own a home, Dave? What is the purpose?
I would say the purpose is people think it's a good investment. Also, you need somewhere to live. But yeah, generally people think it's a good investment. They're generally appreciating assets, so they're worth quite a bit. And, you need a place to live, and you'd rather pay your own mortgage and your own house rather than, pay rent to somebody else's mortgage and house and things like that.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, you do need a place to live. But the primary consideration, quite frankly, for most people in my 30 plus years of doing this is, quite frankly, selfish, right? They want to build, they're going to buy a house. Their impression is that this house is going to go up in value, which is going to create wealth. Then later on, I'm going to get that wealth and I'm going to be able to do something else with it, whatever that might be. And we don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So interesting. All right. So as we say, the mortgage is not going to stop you from building equity in the home, right? It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to really help you. It's just separate from it. So the only way that you build equity in the home at the end of the day is through appreciation, because otherwise it's balance sheet neutral. It's your money going in and so forth. So again, nothing wrong with paying down the mortgage, but the primary function of all this is the home value kind of increases. And then what about the idea, David, of taking large chunks of money and putting it into the home? This is something else that people often do. And they go, oh, that's cool. I'm going to take this giant bonus, or I got an inheritance. I went to Vegas and, great. I want to put it in the house because, that's a great investment. What are our thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Again, we kind of touched on this, that, you're going to save on the interest if you do make a little bit more of a payment or a chunk payment or whatnot. Yeah, you're going to save some interest, but you also lose, the opportunity to use that money elsewhere, to invest it somewhere else. Once it's in the house, it's generally kind of illiquid. It takes a while to get that money back out if you need it. It could be a good way to save money or save on interest costs, I guess. But again, it's going to be kind of, each case is different. Each case depending. What is your interest rate? What are your goals outside of, just paying down the mortgage and things like that? So yeah, it could be good to save interest costs again, but maybe there's something else that you're missing out on because you did that.
Yeah. And I do think there are people that feel that having a large mortgage is going to prevent them somehow from building equity in the home. And again, we're kind of beating the same drum, but the reality is there's zero connection between the size of the mortgage or even a mortgage at all, right, in terms of building equity. All right. Reason number 3, you got it there, Dave?
Reason number 3, yes. A mortgage is cheap money.
What's that mean?
Well, generally speaking, mortgages come with pretty good interest rates. The interest rate environment does fluctuate, but generally speaking, it's pretty cheap. Period. Usually 30 years you're borrowing this money and can have the same interest rate. So as we know, money gets cheaper over time. Inflation, kind of eats the value of the dollar. So today my mortgage payment, let's say it's $2,000. In 30 years, when that payment's also $2,000, it's going to feel a lot different because of, inflation. We're getting paid more, things like that. So generally cheap money for mortgages.
Is a 30-year fixed rate mortgage around the world pretty common?
That's a good question. I read somewhere something that maybe it was Japan. I don't really know that they were offering a 100-year mortgage. And I said, I wish.
I think you might be onto something there, and that's a whole different economic discussion why they have to do that. But what about, let's talk about other Western countries. Do you know offhand, Dave?
I actually don't know.
All right. The 30-year fix is actually pretty unique to the United States. We're one of the few developed Western countries that has a long-term fixed rate where you fixed your cost of borrowing over time. Most other markets, most of Western Europe, Canada, and so forth, have floating rates, right? So it might be float for 3 years or 5 years, and it adjusts as financial market adjusts, which, when we think about it, it's probably a more logical way of borrowing money because, if it costs more money, you should probably pay more money. If it costs less money, you should pay less money. So we're in a unique position in the United States in that we can get these long-term fixed rate mortgages, because what happens when you have that $2,000 payment you talked about for 30 years, and what else is happening in your life?
You're generally increasing your ability to earn more income. You're starting businesses, who knows what else you're doing. But yeah, I guess I'd start there, that your income is generally increasing as you're getting older and into your more perfect working years.
Yeah, right. And at that point, then you're faced with a choice of, do I pay more on my mortgage? And we'll talk more about this in probably another episode. But do you pay more on your mortgage, or do you put that money someplace else to work for you? Because now over time, as your income goes up, that $2,000 is going to feel a lot less than it did when you first started in reality. So, we'll wrap up this one by talking about, because mortgages are long-term fixed typically, and your income is going to go up and other things are going to appreciate over time, including your home, it gives you an opportunity. And those opportunities are really unique in that the opportunities allow you to invest your money someplace else, put money into college or retirements and so forth, which might be ultimately a better choice than, reducing your mortgage balance over time. One of the concepts we teach and we talk about, David, and I'll let you talk about it, is the liability asset gap, right? So when we talk about the liability asset gap, we're really talking about what the rate you're paying for interest, what the return is on your money, and that liability asset gap. So you want to just dive into that a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. I mean, from a simple kind of example perspective, let's say we're borrowing 5% on our mortgage, but then I think we can go earn 10% in the marketplace over a long period of time. Then I guess your liability asset gap would be 5%, right? Because you're able to earn that difference over the long term.
And that's right. And so if you think about it as a consumer, and the fact that this liability asset gap exists, where again, you might have a liability of a mortgage at 5% and your ability to earn is higher than 5%, and David used 10%, that would be a 5% spread. But what if it was only a 1 or 2% spread, Dave? Would that still make sense?
Over long periods of time, it definitely makes sense. The difference between earning 8% return and a 7% return over 30 years could be quite substantial. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I've kind of ran calculators before, and it's pretty amazing, just the power of compound interest and the difference between just 1% on that.
So that liability asset gap, is there another word that you can think of that financial institutions use to describe what that phenomenon is?
Spread risk.
Good guesses. Have you heard the word arbitrage?
Yeah.
Right. So what is arbitrage?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to phone a friend here to put it into simple words. I don't know.
Well, arbitrage is exactly what you just described. It's the liability asset gap. It's the difference between what you're paying for something, what you can earn on something else. And it's the game that every financial institution in the entire world plays. Every financial institution. Yeah. The ones that play it well do very, very well. And their spread, their arbitrage is as little as 0.5%, 1%, 2%. There are occasions when that breaks down and you have negative arbitrage and really bad things happen. As of the date of this recording, some bad things happened about a month ago. A couple of bank failures out there because their arbitrage went negative.
Yeah.
And so their cost of money went above their return on other assets. That's kind of a problem. So cool. So that's the first three. I think we're going to leave the rest here, Dave, because now we start to jump into tax deductibility and the benefits around that. So what other comments do you have around sort of this discussion so far we're having?
Yeah,
From
actually,
your perspective.
yeah, it's kind of a timely discussion. I mean, I was on Twitter the other day and, I follow some financial pages, some for fun pages, some whatever, right? And the things that pop up on my feed are related to that. So there was this one, and it was from this financial advisor guy who is a younger financial advisor, kind of works with millennials and younger folk. And he was talking about how he had a client, they came into a large sum of money, and now it enabled him to purchase a condo for all cash instead of having to use a mortgage. And, he used the word having to use a mortgage. And I think it's important that, well, he could have probably, dove a little farther and go, well, did he, yes, he had to use a mortgage before, but now that he doesn't, should he, does he want to, because of kind of this conversation that it could lead to other opportunities to grow wealth in other areas. So I just thought that was interesting because he basically tweeted that, his lender was still trying to convince him to get a mortgage. And, I don't know what those lenders' goals or wants were, but it opens up a conversation, and maybe we shouldn't tell that lender to go away because there is other opportunities that he could have taken from that mortgage and other wealth building opportunities, right? So,
yeah, so it's opportunity cost, and it brings up a great conversation around bias. And so we started the conversation with the fact that most people don't want mortgages because they feel something negative about it. If we can step back a moment and just be aware that we have a bias and say, okay, I have a bias. Let me explore what it might be to someone who does not have that bias and get some information and thoughts from them, and then make a decision. It doesn't mean you're gonna make a different decision. It just means now you have all the information to make a decision.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course there's a tweet. So who knows kind of the rest of the story with the person, but thought it was interesting.
That's great. Cool. All right. So we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you very much. And we will see you on the next episodes very soon. Thank you.